definitely. And I think for me, something that works really well is because those are automatic thoughts, aren't they? And particularly like on the school run, or whenever you see a mum that, her hair looks lovely, you're like, oh, she's got better hair and she's obviously got more money than me. Or, you immediately loop into different assumptions based on this envy or this comparison of some way that makes you feel bad about yourself. And so I think the key thing is to observe that. And so whenever it doesn't stop the automatic thoughts necessarily, but whenever I feel myself feeling that yucky comparison, I just, maybe some days when I'm feeling less resilient, I will lean into it a little bit too much. But mostly I'm able to think, okay, that's comparison. And I try and label it as such and just give myself that little buffer. So rather than being totally swept away by that feeling of not good enough inside yourself because someone else has better hair or nicer shoes or a better job or whatever it is that's triggering you on that day, just being able to pull yourself back is so valuable. And it's really interesting, actually. I've been finding, interestingly, I love Instagram for so many reasons. It's been such a brilliant connection to women. It's been a great way of just sort of, finding a lovely community of maternal, mental and physical wellness. But what I found recently is because I've been on Instagram a bit more than I used to be, because I've sort of built up more networks and I'm chatting to people a lot more, I'm finding that comparison trap is just catching me much more and drawing me in, so really hooking me into my phone. And I found that I would be checking my phone in the morning. I keep my phone in the kitchen overnight, which I recommend everyone does anyway, not have the phone in your bedroom. But in the morning, I would have a look. The first thing I did was to, sort of open my phone, look at Instagram. And sometimes the first, therefore, emotion I felt, excuse me, was, oh God, I'm not good enough. And it was, and what's really, every single day I did this, like, kind of, like sort of moth to a flame. It was really kind of pulling me in. And so I made a conscious choice last week, for various reasons. I've got a lot of work on at the moment and I simply can't allow myself to be distracted by Instagram. But I thought, I'm just going to delete the app and see how that feels. And yes, there's a huge sense of fear of missing out and like missing the connections, because I chat to people loads on Instagram and I'm missing, I'm like, oh, what's everyone doing without me? But at the same time, I've really noticed that I haven't had that feeling, that yucky feeling. And it all, of course, you get that comparison feeling triggered by people that you meet on the street and friends and, people you work with. But what I was finding was that the prevalent feeling of my day was being swept away in Instagram by that feeling of someone being more popular than me or someone looking better or all that stuff that goes on in your brain. And I wasn't able in the same way because I was spending so much time on it, because I wasn't able to employ that sort of little buffer of going, this is comparison. And I felt so much clearer for the last week as a result. It's really interesting. I haven't had that sense of like, oh, I'm not good enough. I mean, I have, in the normal way, everyone has. Sort of, but it hasn't brought me down like an anchor, dropping. So I really recommend just noticing, choosing to observe what are your triggers for comparison. And if it is social media, proactively do something. If you feel that yucky feeling, listen to it and actually turn your phone off, put it away. It sounds
stop torturing yourself.
Exactly. It's what we really do, don't we? We can kind of observe ourselves going scroll, scroll, scroll. Even though you're feeling those feelings, you kind of jump right in like a soft play area. And it's not healthy. But you need to choose to overturn that a little bit. Even just, I totally will go back to Instagram, obviously. But now that I've sort of really noticed how much less, how my day no longer starts with a sense of, ugh. It starts with a put your shoes on with my kids, it doesn't start with a sense of like failing compared to some other Instagrammer who is doing something better than me. It's just regular life stuff, trying to get my children dressed and stuff, which is a bit more manageable when you're not thinking already that you're not good enough.
Because essentially what this is about is, you've mentioned the feelings of not good enough, which having worked with so many women is so prevalent and is more often than not the very deep rooted belief that they have acquired at a very young age. And it doesn't have to be necessarily big situations in their childhood, but early experiences that have created this belief that's taken them through all the way to adulthood. Absolutely. But essentially this is about having confidence with yourself and the job that you're doing, going, I'm doing a good job and I'm trusting my instinct as a mother and a woman.
And I think the thing about instinct is really interesting, because I don't know about you, but I think we assume, and you're kind of, the maternal instinct is painted as this kind of, Mona Lisa, Mother Teresa, Lady Madonna idea of innate serenity and innate knowledge of what it's like to be a mum. And actually, as when you actually become a mum for the first time, you're probably in shock. Whatever your birth experience was like, you're in this kind of like heightened state of, whether it's euphoria and shock or just euphoria or whatever it is, it's a heightened kind of landscape of emotion. And then you're just thrown into this sleep-deprived world of, oh my God, what am I going to do? And so the idea of instinct is almost then clouded because you're sort of on hyper alert survival mode. And I think then is when we start to go, I thought I'd have this instinct that I'd know exactly what to do, and yet I'm totally flummoxed by how on earth you're supposed to change a nappy, and I put that grow bag on the wrong way round. And you kind of start questioning yourself because you don't know the detail of mothering in terms of the duties that you need to do, and there are many, or learning how to breastfeed, when no one, you think that that's going to come naturally, and actually it's incredibly hard natural thing. And I think for me, the idea of instinct comes with confidence and experience. The more you get to know your baby, the more you kind of adapt and tune into your baby. But the trouble is, we cloud that by looking for expert opinion online constantly. And that's, again, where phones are amazing and yet quite damaging, or, books, whatever it is. There was a study quite recently that postnatal depressive symptoms were higher often in women who were following guidebooks that suggest very strict routine. Because if your baby isn't one of those routiny babies, you then feel like you're doing the wrong thing and you're getting it wrong and your baby's getting it wrong, as opposed to maybe the book doesn't really know your baby. We tend to look at the book and think, I'm not doing the right thing, and actually it's the book has no idea what your baby needs. So the idea of instinct, we don't take as a kind of raw emotional face-to-face thing anymore. We think it's just going to come and happen, and then I'll look into a book to tell me what to do. Whereas I feel like instinct grows over time, and when you feel confident, when you're not having those clouded 7 million opinions clouding your judgment, then you can tap into your instinct a bit more. But it actually involves having that clarity, having that sense of, okay, yeah, actually I feel like I'm doing an okay job here. And the trouble is, the mothering modern landscape doesn't enable women to feel that confidence, because we're constantly being alarmed by different headlines on a social media post that suggests that this will be damaging your baby, or you've done this to damage your baby during pregnancy, etc., etc. Too many opinions definitely makes you question your instinct. And so the instinct thing, yes, I believe we all have that. We are human animals, like every other animal who has the same maternal instinct. We all want to protect our young, nurture, soothe, soften, connect. But we look to other people's opinions far too much because we're just, tired and scared and worried. And ultimately, we want to get back to our normal life, in inverted commas, and ultimately we want to get back to sleeping well. And so all these things aren't really compatible with a newborn, which is necessarily just up all the time and needing feeding. But because it's so incompatible with modern life, we look to these experts to help us. And then that means that there's no space for our instinct to really kick in. And I think lots of women have said to me that was a big shock for them, that they didn't have this amazing maternal instinct suddenly. And it's sort of like, well, I feel like maternal instinct is something that's a little seed inside you, but that seed needs water and sunshine. And unless you're giving it that, then it's just going to remain a seed, and you're just going to throw other seeds of opinions in, unless you actually nurture it. And confidence is the kind of sunshine, I think, that kind of sense of, I'm going to listen to what I feel like I need to do. And I think that's where mindfulness and meditation comes in brilliantly. But even if you can simply stop and take a breath and listen to what your mind is telling you a little bit, or listen to your heart center rather than scrolling on your phone for an opinion, that's when we'll actually tap in a little bit more to that innate sense of knowing what you want to do, you know, what your gut is telling you to do, what your baby or your toddler is telling you what to do.